Yo, what's happening guys, King GPL here, and welcome back to some Go Battle League. Today I'm going to be showcasing a very strong team that got me from 2350 all the way to Veteran. I highly recommend this team, and I want to say a big thank you to Sheener PvP. He recommended this team to me. He's hit I think 2800 with it, getting very close to Legend. This team is working at, for me of course, at 2350 all the way to Veteran, and for him I believe he started off on like 2350 as well, and he's now currently at like 28 or 2900, so definitely a very good team, highly recommend it, and big thank you for the team recommendation. I was playing Great League today and I did drop down. I've been trying to hit Veteran for about 2 weeks, so it's definitely been a very tricky time hitting Veteran this season. If you guys have been struggling to hit Ace or Veteran, trust me, you're not alone. This season is very difficult, and we had the 2 weeks of Spring Cup and we've had a lot of open leagues, which typically in my opinion are quite difficult to climb in. So hopefully with this video and with this team, you can look to climb a little bit. I'm going to be showcasing some of the bad leads, and I'm just going to showcase all 3 sets I've done today. I have been using this team for a few days, and definitely I went on a bit of a hot streak. I mean, after going 0-5 and, you know, like 2-3 or whatever, I finally did start getting some good leads and everything. In this first match, I was actually forced to stay in against the Glisopod, which is not a very good lead for my entire team basically. But generally speaking, the whole team works quite well. Poliwrath I think is the best Pokemon in the cup. Dragonite with 2 shields up or shields down just goes crazy. And Sandslash is probably the best core breaker in the cup. There are a lot of teams that are ABA weak to it, and I do highly recommend it. Now like I said, you're going to start seeing some bad leads eventually, so we'll showcase some of those and we'll talk about how to deal with them. If you do get a counter user in the lead, typically what you're going to want to do is swap into Dragonite. We do take the win in the first game, and in the next one we have a much better lead. We had a Glisopod last game, bit of a core breaker, but you can sort of play that with Sandslash. Now Dragonites, I was very tempted to call this at this point, because about 90% of the time they go for Dragon Claw. If you're feeling brave enough, just let this move go. I normally prefer to play it safe and just go for shields and ice sponges. You outpace no matter what, there's no way they can outpace you. They will eventually go for a catch or swap out, so you just have to be ready for that. In this case, the opponent for an alignment, and I'm pretty much happy with this. We both give up both of our shields. The opponent's actually staying in here, and what I decide to do is come in and snipe with the Dragonite, get the energy lead. The opponent was definitely showing that they're weak to Sandslash, and we get a perfect CMP tie here on the Superpower. Superpower will actually KO the Ampharos, which is perfect. The opponent comes in with a Skeledirge. They're going to be able to farm me the whole way down, but the good thing is, this is the opponent's final Pokemon. I've got a Poliwrath which can one-shot it with Scald, and I've got the Drill Run loaded. Now in this match I make a bit of a mistake, which could have been very costly. What I end up doing here is coming into Poly, right? The opponent builds up to 5 Incinerates, which is enough for a Disarming Voice and a Shadow Ball. What I should have done is just eaten both moves on the Poly, because what I end up doing here is getting a counter free with the Poly, and then swapping out to try and hit them with the Drill Run, but unfortunately the opponent threw the moves back to back, so that was definitely a loose con. You have to be super careful when you're swapping out trying to go for a charge move, because if the opponent hits their charge move and they win CMP, well, you can see what happens. Fortunately, we do make it to the move, and we're hopping into the next one with Walrein. Venusaur lead, Walrein in the back. I think the opponent must have some sort of second answer to flying in the back. Now this is a very dominant matchup for Poliwrath, even without a fighting move. We can basically farm all the way up. The opponent would be getting to the Earthquake after one more Powder Snow. I could have done one more counter, that's perfectly fine. My goal here is to basically get shields off the Venusaur, and the opponent's going to be basically forced to shield. Now quite fortunately, the opponent gets denied, and as I mentioned, I just have a feeling that they're double weak to Poly. They have a Venusaur, which is a good answer to Poly. They go for a CMP tie here. Their safe swap was a Walrein, so I'm definitely thinking they have 2 things that are weak to counter, plus Venusaur, which does well against Poly. Makes a lot of sense. The opponent lets that move go, I farm it the whole way down, and they do come into the Penguin. Right here, all I need to do is just debuff them into Oblivion. The opponent's energy is not going to be too threatening on the Sandslash, and I'm just going to come into the Dragonite at this point. Even though Dragon Breath is resisted, this does a ton of damage. We've debuffed the opponent's attack, so we can let the Drill Peck go. I can basically look to CMP on the second one here. I don't necessarily need to go for charge attacks anymore. I should just commit to the farm down, and that's pretty much what I decide to do. If I just farm this down with Dragon Breath, it's going to be in a position where the opponent is forced to throw here, and yeah, there's just not really a win con. If I come into Poliwrath, the opponent will still be forced to throw. The opponent basically realizes there's curtains for them, they let the move go, and that's good games. It feels good to finally have hit Veteran, guys. It's been a tough season so far, so hopefully from now onwards we can look to make a bit of a climb. In the next match we have a Magnezone, and the opponent comes straight into a Poly. We go straight into Dragonite. This is a little bit sort of bad for us because they can pretty much outpace us to Icy Wind at this point. So what I decide to do here is look to go for a CMP tie on the Dragon Claw. This is tricky because if we shield, we can potentially take swap. I could have just went for a Superpower there. I sort of regret not doing so, but I realised that maybe I can just farm it the whole way down. The Magnezone, because it is non-shadow, will still be forced to throw a move, so I decide to go for 3 Dragon Breaths and the Dragon Claw, just for good timing here, and I'm going to look to fire off the Superpower. Now in this match, I get extremely lucky right here, because what you're about to see is I come into the Poliwrath, and the opponent actually aggro swaps into the Swampert. Very, very lucky. Had the opponent stayed in and thrown off a move, I would have been in big trouble there. They basically well charged the Poliwrath. I think they would have got to it, and then they come in and just go for a Hydro Cannon with the Swampert, and that's curtains for me. In the next game, the opponent comes into Feraligatr, we come into the Poliwrath. So right here, this is a fantastic match for Poly. You can pretty much, I think, shield once counter the whole way down. I've given them an energy advantage, so I think I do have to shield here once. If you just come in straight away, I don't think you have to shield, so it's completely up to you. I decided to go for an Icy Wind here, so that I potentially don't have to give up a shield, and that I can get the farm down, but as you can see, Feraligatr very spammy, hits like a truck. They will get off these moves, and I will have to shield. I do realize that I can get the shield back off the Dragonite. If they want to, they can sacrifice it, and it'll be 2 versus 1. I'm very happy with that as well. I'm pretty happy just to get this Icy Wind off. Now, you could consider swapping out, but I'm on such low health that it's barely worth it. The opponent swaps into a Greedent. The reason I didn't swap out is because I thought I would get to a move, and also I didn't want to lock myself. The Greedent will go for Body Slams. We can comfortably live 2. The opponent has to go for 3 Body Slams here. Now, I do make a slight mistake in this match as well. What you really should be doing here is, after this, go for a CMP in the Superpower, because I don't want to shield this move, right? So if you're not going to shield, go for the Superpower. The opponent lets the move through. I might as well have just went for Superpower, because I'm not going to shield the third Body Slam anyway, but this also gives me a good opportunity to come in here, tank some moves on Sand Slash. Before I throw any moves, I'm going to make sure I'm up to 100 energy. I just want to make sure I can always outpace the Dragonite. We're up to basically like 2.5 Ice Punches. The opponent's got no way of outpacing us at this point. Even if they shield Greedent, of course I can just fire off another move, go for Ice Punch anyway. I think the opponent's going to fight it out to the bitter end here. They're not going to make 2 moves, and yeah, that's basically good games. In this meta, I do see quite a lot of Dragonite leads. I think this is definitely a very good time for Sand Slash. Sand Slash just has a habit of core breaking teams. You're going to see later on in the video, there are teams that are double, triple weak to Sand Slash. Now, of course, you will get Talonflames. You're going to get your counter users in the lead. Like I said, if you do get a counter user in the lead or a Talonflame, go into Poliwrath if it's a Talonflame. If you get a Nihilate or Poly in the lead, go straight into Dragonite. Hopping into this next game, we have a Galvantula lead. Now, in the Ultra League, a very common line is Galvantula in the lead, with Mandibuzz and Jellicent in the back. Whenever you see a Galvantula lead, you can almost guarantee there's going to be at least 1 Flyer or 1 Water in the back, sometimes double Water. Basically 2 Pokemon that are weak to Electric in the back of this. I decide here just to get this move off. I'm going to try to take both shields off the opponent. If they want a double shield on the lead, that's perfectly fine. They do end up letting the move go. I was pretty convinced they would go for a lunge here because it's their final move, and it probably is enough to KO. They come into Feraligatr here, and they do go for a Hydro Cannon. What I decide to do here is shield up the first move, and once again, we're going to try and CMP the opponent on the Superpower. I think I actually just throw in good timing instead of CMP. So funny, whenever I'm trying to throw in alignment, I throw in good timing. Maybe I should try that more often, but we do actually get off a second move despite debuffing ourselves, and the opponent's in a very tough position now at this point. The reason I went for Superpower there is because I basically did not want to give the opponent farm. The opponent comes into a Mandibuzz. As predicted, they've got a Water type and Mandy. The typical variation of this team is Jelly Mandy. I decided to shield up the first move, of course. We're going to look to go for Icy Wind debuffs. In this situation, Poliwrath does very well up a shield. You just debuff them once or twice and they're basically not going to do any damage to you. I think after this first earliest, the opponent will realise it's curtains. I think the opponent wanted me to go for a catch as some sort of a win con for them, but I realised at the time, I love going for unnecessary catches just for the fun of it, but there's absolutely no need to. You can see that these earliest are doing nothing, and hopping into the next match, we play this player all the time. They come into a Charizard lead. Now, this is a sort of pretty equal matchup. It's very bait dependent. I farm up to 6, pause a turn, come into Poliwrath, and that's curtains. The opponent sees the writing on the wall. Now listen guys, whenever you've got a matchup like that, where Ice Punch is super threatening, whether it's Charizard, whether it's Dragonite, you always just have to be super cognizant of the catch. Don't throw straight away, throw just before they get to the move, or pause a turn if the opponent's using a 2-turn move. So basically what you have to do is stop attacking for a second, and just watch the animation come through. You will see the opponent complete the animation. As soon as you see the opponent completing the animation, that's whenever it's safe to throw your move, right? If you don't see the animation come through, just don't throw the charge move, because the opponent's going to be swapping out. I know on iPhones, sometimes that doesn't work, so you have to be a little bit careful, but certainly on Android, pausing a turn can basically instantly win you matches like that. Hopping into this next match, we have a Dragonite lead, which again is very positive for us. We love to see it. We're going to basically overfarm, but the opponent comes into an Ampharos. Now, because the opponent swapped out, it takes 1 turn for them to swap, so I'm able to throw this move immediately on 6 for good timing. Basically, it takes you 12 turns to get to your move. It takes them 12 turns to get to their move, but because they've done a 1-turn swap, it's actually 13 moves. So if you throw on 6, that's 12 turns into 13. Now, what we do is come into the Dragonite, we shield up the first move, we tank the second one, and I'm going to look to try and go for a CMP on this final move here. The counts for Ampharos are free, 2, free, 2, free, 2. Exactly the same as Charjabug in the Great League. Now right here I make a huge mistake. Look at the switch clock up at the top. I actually swapped out without waiting down my switch timer. The opponent comes into an Excadrill. That is super fortunate for me. If the opponent had a counter user in the back, I instantly lose this game because they just start punching me down. So I wanted to put that in there because I've been really impatient lately and it's been costing me on a few occasions. Whenever you haven't seen the opponent's third Pokemon, you always have to wait down your switch clock, especially if you're using Sandslash, especially because if they come into a Poliwrath or an Annihilape, they can just absolutely rinse your Pokemon in just 2 seconds flat. If you guys recall, I stayed in to throw the charge attack, the 12 into 13, right? I stayed in to throw that move, so my switch clock was completely misaligned. The opponent had a slight advantage in that situation. If you're like me and you're tilting and molding a GBL, you still have to try to remain patient because it's actually been costing me matches. I can think of 2 or 3 matches in the last few days where I just didn't bother waiting my switch clock down and ended up losing. Now in this match right here, the opponent had a Feraligatr lead, I came into Poliwrath. Annihilape is a very strong answer to this, so I really don't know why they didn't come into this, and they actually threw off the move. So this is very negative for me, but the opponent's playing this in the worst way possible basically. They're going to build up towards a Shadow Ball. I'm going to respect it. I've seen Night Slash. I think there's no reason not to go for Shadow Ball at this point. They do go for Night Slash, which is fine. And I end up CMPing on this next move. Arguably, I should just go for the farm down and keep the energy, but the opponent's shields get off a Night Slash, which is just super weird gameplay. We tank it, and we're going to farm it the whole way down. They come in with Dragalge, and I come into the Sandslash. The opponent did have an absolute ton of energy on the Feraligatr, so this is definitely a little bit unfortunate. I think my win con at this point is to try and farm it down, but unfortunately, they do make it to a last second move. Pretty unfortunate there. The opponent definitely did not play this match the best. We do go for 1 and 4 on the Ice Punch. Maybe I should try to go for 3 Ice Punches here, but I'm not quite sure if I can make it. I go for the Drill Run, go for the big move, see if I can get them low enough that I can take them out with the Dragonite. Yeah, the opponent farms me the whole way down. Maybe I could have got to 3 Ice Punches, maybe that would have been the win con. They might have been forced to throw energy at that point, and maybe I can just farm this down, but the opponent goes for a big Outrage. Good games to the opponent there. I think that was definitely my win con, go for 3 Ice Punches. A very close game, but it really shouldn't have been, to be honest. The opponent should have just came into Ape. Now in this next match we have a very positive lead in Nidoqueen. I decide here just to YOLO the big move. I'm going to go for a pause as I done before and look to fire off the Drill Run. The opponent will be at the Earth Power. I decide I'm going to just shield this up, farm it the whole way down. I thought they would just play the zeros, but they're going for a Poison Fang, and they do actually swap into a Mandibuzz. So they've debuffed my defense. Kind of awkward here. So I'm going to look to chip it, do a little Chipper McDipper here, and head into the Dragonite. Now you might be thinking, why not go Poly? Weren't you just talking about how great Poly was? I was talking about that, however, I am down a shield, and they've got a Nidoqueen, and they've safe swapped a Mandibuzz. Now if you guys have been playing GBL for quite some time, Poison Double Dark is quite a common team composition. Poison in the lead, with 2 Dark types in the back, or 2 Pokemon that are weak to counter in the back. We do have a Mandibuzz. I'm suspecting they have something like a Greedent, or maybe they have like an Alolan Sandslash for example. Maybe they have another Dark type, maybe it's Umbreon. I'm definitely thinking here that, yeah, we can do some work. I decide to come in and tank the move, and they actually come into their own Poliwrath. So quite an interesting team there. They've got a ground type in the lead with 2 Pokemon that are weak to Lantern, so I guess that also kind of makes sense. Now we do have an energy lead right here, and I'm laughing because I recall I was cussing this guy out for baiting me while streaming this live on YouTube, which is kind of funny. I tend to do that quite a lot. It probably comes across as quite toxic, but it's generally just kind of like an in-the-moment thing where I'll cuss somebody out for baiting. I was asking in a community poll quite recently if you guys, enjoy or dislike swearing in videos. Definitely when I'm live streaming, I just definitely can't hold it back, but we do get rid of that thing. We come into this, we go for an Ice Punch immediately, and that will be good games well played. So a bit of a misread on the team. It was kind of funny that the opponent was staying in there. I think they do get off a last second move, but Poly can just deal with it at this range. The opponent is dry from here, and we can just counter it the whole way down. So yeah, definitely this season of GBL, the mold has been at all-time highs. I've definitely been getting super frustrated, and I think a lot of it reflects in my sort of gameplay and how I'm speaking a lot of the time. But in the next game we get a Galarian Sunfisk. We can deal with that with our Poly, and you can just about beat it with the Sandslash. It's a pretty bait-dependent matchup, so if the opponent YOLOs the Earthquake, it could be quite good for us. Now right here, I'm thinking I'm going to get off the move just before they get to their Earthquake, and I'm going to give myself the opportunity to catch if I want to. Get the shield back off the opponent. The opponent shields, and the reason I don't come into Dragonite is just on the off chance that the opponent decides to bait, not trying to catch a Rock Slide. We'll eat the Earthquake, Poly's Fick, and in comes Lantern. So it's pretty obvious why the opponent was staying in. They're just basically ABI weak. Now what I decide to do here is double debuff the opponent. I think I go for 1 debuff and 1 Scald, but I don't go for it straight away. I allow the opponent to spark me down first, because I don't want to give the opponent additional energy. In either case, the opponent gets 100 energy anyway, So maybe I could have potentially got off free icy winds, which might have been threatening. So maybe if I'd thrown my moves a little bit sooner, I could have threatened a shield off the opponent, or threatened the knockout with free icy winds. Just at the time, that's what I decided. And the opponent actually comes into a Gudra. This is kind of tricky. I don't have the most amazing IVs on Dragonite, so I don't think I make it to 2 moves against Gudra, unfortunately. And the opponent just gets the perfect amount of farm where they can get off an Aqua Tail here. And unless I'm able to farm them down in 2 or 3 Shadow Claws, they will get off a second one. Yeah, unfortunately, the opponent is just at it. So pretty unfortunate backline. We survived that on 1 HP, but it's not going to be good enough at this point. We're unable to farm it down, and hopping into the next one, we have a Steelix. So right here, the opponent's staying in, which is a pretty telltale sign, of course, that they're weak to Sand Slash in the back. And as I mentioned, you know, a lot of teams are just ABA weak to this. They let the move go, which indicates to me that they're going to go for Earthquake and play out the zeros. The opponent actually goes for Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs and Crunch is the typical moveset. I make a bit of a slow swap, but I come into Dragonite eventually here. Poliwrath is such a problem for Dragonite if they're up energy, especially 2 counters, because they can, I think, outpace me to 2 here, which is kind of unfortunate. So I think what I'm looking to do is going for the CMP here. I'll completely sack the Dragonite at this point. They have a Steelix, they can farm me the whole way down with Steelix and come up with energy. Do not want to see that. We're going to look to basically give the opponent a shield advantage, and pretty much hope that our Sand Slash is ABI strong. The opponent did stay in against it, so we just have to hope that our Sand Slash can clean up here. I'm going to go for this Icy Wind. I'm trying to knock them out and even lower the damage. Unfortunately, it does knock them out, and it does lower the damage, but we do get debuffed. I go for an aggro swap. The opponent aggro swaps into a Tentacruel, so they're definitely ABA weak to Sand Slash. Now I'm going to get this move off. I'm getting up to 100 energy, and what I'm going to try and do is go for CMP tie on this next move. Once again, whenever you're only getting off 1 more move, you try your best to CMP the opponent. They're forced to dump their energy, meaning that they're completely dry. The Poliwrath might be able to outpace them to the move, and hopefully we can actually take them out with the Scald. We go for a CMP tie. Poly does win CMP, and hopefully this can KO. I think at this point the opponent realizes that it will KO, and they're basically going to quit the match here. Good games to that opponent. We basically sit there, counter everything down, and yeah, that's good games. Whenever you see a Pokemon in the lead, where it's a really positive lead for Sand Slash, but the opponent's staying in to fight it out a little bit, it basically means that they only have 1 answer to it, and you know, most of the time it does be a Poly or it does be an Annihilate. What I like to do is sometimes just shield the lead, just to keep your Pokemon healthy, because it's obvious that they're core breaking, right? So keep your Pokemon healthy. Once again, the opponent's staying in here. It's pretty obvious that they're weak to Sand Slash. It's never a bad idea to invest a shield into this matchup, whenever the opponent's kind of showing their hand super early, but they are really weak to it. I guess the opponent probably can't swap out to their hard counter, because then their only counter to Sand Slash will be gone. That's pretty much the thinking behind this. I farm up to 1 before the CMP this time, because I know that I need to keep this Pokemon healthy. It's super healthy. I'm going to swap into Poliwrath. I'm pretty much assuming that this will be their only Poliwrath answer, or that's what I'm hoping at the time. I'm going to try to counter this the whole way down. The opponent does not get off another move, and they come into Dragalge, down on energy. I believe it's 7 or 8 Dragon Tails. I think 7 to the Outrage. Before they get to that, we're going to get off 2 Icy Winds, which is going to put them 1 foot in the grave. And again, because the opponent sort of showed how weak they were to Sand Slash, like, I'm not really super inclined to shield this. I'm thinking I'll just take Sand Slash energy, or maybe even just take a Dragon Breath down. Dragonite can get shields off just about anything, and yeah, the opponent realizes that's basically game over for them. I don't know what they had in the back. Could be a Dragonite. In comes Feraligatr. We come straight into Poly. Whenever you do get a Feraligatr lead, I would come straight into Poly, because oftentimes they just don't have a good response to it. Now this time, because the opponent decides to stay in, I'm going to throw this move. They swap out into a Gliscor. That's basically why they didn't want to swap out. They wanted me to throw energy first, because look how much damage Poly can do to Gliscor. I'm going to let this move go. I'm going to decide, okay, the opponent's got like a million Hydro Cannons banged. They go for a Night Slash. That's not going to cut it, and they go for another CMP tie. This is fantastic at this point. The Feraligatr is super low, and we've got a full health Sand Slash, but they come into an Ape. I cannot allow the opponent to farm me the whole way down. I have to make the swap here. This is still tricky, because they've got just a ton of energy. I'm going to farm up here. The opponent eventually goes for a Snipe, which was pretty predictable. At this point, I realize I just have to call it. I have to call that it's not going to be the move. They have back-to-back moves loaded. They're going to go for another Hydro Cannon or a Crunch here. And I think at this point, I realize my win con, because I've done so much Dragon Breath damage, is to farm this thing the whole way down with Sand Slash, come up with 2 Ice Punches, and basically look to unload them on the Ape. I go for a very nasty catch here on the Hydro Cannon, just absolutely making sure that I am not going to lose this match. The opponent is forced to throw in that situation, so I was pretty comfortable making the catch. We're going to build up to back-to-back Ice Punches. The opponent's not yet throwing a move. I think they're probably going to see that it's game over, and yeah, the opponent lets them move through. Good games, guys. We finally hit Expert, and I want to say a big shout out towards the end. Have a look at this. Big shout out to Daryl, dropping a $200 donation on the end of the stream, congratulating me for hitting Veteran. Big thank you to everybody who is, always showing amazing support, like watching the streams, liking, subscribing, commenting. All of that stuff helps, and of course everybody who's dropping insane donations. It is extremely generous, and I do want to take a chance here just to say a huge thank you to everybody who does so. There's not a whole lot I can do to repay that because the generosity just is absolutely amazing, but if you guys are ever looking for any sort of feedback in your gameplay, or if there's anything I can do to help, by all means let me know. But yeah guys, thank you very much, I hope you enjoyed the video. We finally hit Veteran, we have 10 sets per day, so I will most likely be streaming for the rest of the week, and we also have 2 weeks of Jungle Cup. Fingers crossed that Cup is good. It is going to be a Vigoroth Steelix Clodsire meta, which is something unlike what we've had before. I mean, we've had plenty of Vigoroth metas, but it is quite interesting because Vigoroth actually isn't that amazing into Steelix unless it's using Bulldoze. So that meta is going to be quite interesting, and I think it'll be hopefully a meta where I can look to pretty much figure out some good teams. Whenever it comes to this channel, I showcase, different Open Great League teams, but in my personal view, it's very RPS most of the time. Also, big shout out to Donovan. As you can see, he gifted me the research for the comm day. Once again, big thank you, and if there's anything I can do to pay that back in some way, by all means, please let me know. But as I was mentioning, with these sort of open leagues, you just sort of have to try it out and find out. You can run teams that don't make any sense, and they may work for some periods of time, but then of course they'll stop working. You'll run into your core breakers constantly. So I think with open leagues, the best thing you can do, try to make some sort of a team that makes sense, that cover each other's weakness as well. And in limited cups, I think that's definitely where I can probably offer a lot more help in terms of team building and strategies, which can kind of just overcome any team. But thanks everybody, hope you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you all tomorrow.